The transport ship dropped out of hyperspace, and Day One pressed his face against the window. Station Theta 7 hung in the void like a massive ring of steel and light. This was the Galactic Combat Academy, where the best warriors from every corner of known space came to prove themselves. Day One felt his stomach tighten. He was just a human from a small colony world. What was he doing here? The docking bay was enormous. Cadets of every species imaginable walked past him. There were tall creatures with 4 arms, others that floated on anti-gravity fields, and some that looked like they were made of living crystal. Day One adjusted his bag on his shoulder and followed the signs to the registration hall. Inside, chaos ruled. Hundreds of cadets pushed and shoved to get their assignments. Day One stood in line, behind a massive reptilian being who smelled like burned metal. When his turn came, a board administrator handed him a datapad without looking up. Day One, human. Barracks 12, bunk 47. Your instructor is Velthis. Don't be late for orientation. The administrator waved him away. Barracks 12 was a long metal corridor lined with sleeping pods. Day One found his bunk and threw his bag inside. The pod next to his opened, and another human poked his head out. Hey, you're human too. I'm Hyun Woo. Earth Colony 6. The man extended his hand. Day One shook it. Earth Colony 3. First time off-world? Second. You? Hyun Woo climbed out of his pod. He was taller than Day One, and had the build of someone who spent time in the gym. First, Day One admitted. Hyun Woo whistled. Bold choice coming here. Then, you know what this place is famous for, right? Before Day One could answer, a loud alarm blared through the barracks. A voice echoed from the speakers. All cadets report to the main arena for orientation. Immediately. Asks. End P. Asks. The main arena was the largest space Day One had ever seen. It could hold thousands. And today, it was packed. Cadets filled the stands, talking in dozens of languages. Day One and Hyun Woo found seats near the back. A figure walked onto the arena floor. It was reptilian, covered in dark green scales, with eyes that gleamed like yellow gems. The creature stood at least 8 feet tall. When it spoke, its voice boomed through the arena, without any microphone. I am Instructor Velthis. I have trained warriors for 300 years. Some of you will leave this academy as legends. Most of you will leave as failures. A few of you will not leave at all. Velthis, let that sink in. Your final trial will be against the Arena Corps. It is an adaptive combat, artificial intelligence. For 80 years, cadets have faced it. For 80 years, none have defeated it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Day One leaned forward. Velthis continued. The trial is simple. Survive for 10 minutes, and you pass. Defeat the Corps, and you become a legend. But understand this. The Corps learns. Every move you make, it studies. Every strategy you try, it counters. It evolves during the fight. It has faced every species, every fighting style, every weapon. It has never lost. A cadet stood up in the front row. She was human, with sharp features and confident posture. Instructor, how close has anyone come? Your name? Cadet? Sir. Velthis studied her. The record is 9 minutes and 43 seconds. Held by a Thraken warrior who died from his injuries afterward. Do you think you can do better? Gontanal Tenchal Desing. Gontanal Tenchal Desing. Gontanal Tenchal Desing. Of Gontanal Tenchal. 11 the next DC. Yes, sir, Gia said without hesitation. Some cadets laughed. Velthis did not. Confidence is good. Arrogance is fatal. Sit down. Gia sat. But Day One could see the determination on her face even from the back row. You have 6 months to prepare, Velthis said. Train hard. Study your opponents. Learn everything you can. But know this, The arena core cannot be defeated. It is not a question of skill or strength. It is a fact of reality. Your goal is survival, not victory. The orientation ended, and cadets filed out talking excitedly. Hyun-woo nudged Day One. "You're quiet. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about what he said. That it adapts and learns. So, everything adapts. That's combat. But how does it learn? What does it run on? Where does it get its processing power?" Day One pulled out his datapad and started making notes. Hyun-woo stared at him. "You're not seriously thinking about defeating it, are you?" "You heard Velthus. 80 years. Nobody has done it. Somebody has to be first," Day One said quietly. Over the next few days, Day One learned the academy routine. Morning, physical training. Afternoon combat practice. Evening tactical studies. The other cadets were impressive. Jia proved to be the top fighter in their group, moving with perfect form and devastating speed. Others had natural advantages, extra limbs, armored skin, telepathic abilities. Day One was average at best. He lost more sparring matches than he won. During tactical exercises, he asked strange questions that confused the instructors. How much power does the arena core draw during combat? Where are the energy conduits located? What's the response time of the safety systems? One instructor, a floating jellyfish-like being, answered patiently. These questions are irrelevant to combat. Human. Focus on your technique. But Day One kept asking. He spent his free time in the academy library, reading maintenance manuals and energy distribution charts. Hyun-woo thought he was wasting his time. Jia thought he was afraid to train properly. Neither understood what he was doing. Late one night, Day One snuck into the observation deck above the main arena. Below, maintenance drones worked on the arena floor. He watched them carefully, noting which panels they opened, which systems they tested. He took pictures with his datapad. "You're not supposed to be here." Day One spun around. A nervous-looking man in a technician uniform stood behind him. His name tag read, Sun Ho. "I'm sorry," Day One said. "I was just curious about how the arena works." Sun Ho looked around nervously. "If you're caught up here, you'll be expelled, and I'll be fired." "I'm leaving," Day One said, but then paused. "Can I ask you something? The arena core, is it connected to the station's main power grid, or does it have independent power?" Sun Ho blinked. "Why would you want to know that?" "Just curious," the technician sighed. "It uses both. Main power for baseline functions, independent fusion cell for combat operations. Now go before someone sees you." "Commandant." Day One thanked him and left. Back in his bunk, he added the information to his growing collection of notes. Hyun-woo was already asleep, snoring softly. Day One stared at his datapad for a long time before finally closing his eyes. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a plan was beginning to form. The weeks turned into months. Every Friday, cadets faced preliminary trials in the training arena. These were smaller tests against holographic opponents and basic combat drones. Day One performed adequately, but never spectacularly. He passed his trials with average scores that kept him in the academy, but earned him no recognition. What the other cadets didn't notice was that Day One spent every Friday afternoon in the observation deck, watching the advanced cadets face the arena core in their final trials. The first one he watched was a Krell warrior named Thax. Thax had 4 arms and could move faster than most beings could think. He entered the arena with confidence, carrying traditional plasma blades in each hand. The arena core materialized as a swirling sphere of hard light energy that quickly formed into a humanoid combat frame. The fight lasted 4 minutes. Thax used every trick his species had developed over millennia. He attacked from multiple angles, used feints and misdirection, even threw one of his blades to create an opening. The core adapted to each move. By the 3rd minute, it was predicting Thax's attacks before he made them. At 4 minutes and 12 seconds, the core landed a strike that sent Thax crashing into the arena wall. Medical drones rushed in immediately. Day 1 took notes. He didn't write about the combat techniques. Instead, he recorded core power spike at 234 when materializing heavy armor. Energy draw reduced at 315 when switching to speed mode. Processing hesitation of 0.3 seconds when opponent changed weapon mid-fight. The next trial he watched was Gia. The entire academy turned out for this one. Gia had the highest combat scores in decades. She entered the arena carrying nothing but her fists and feet, relying purely on technique and speed. The fight was beautiful to watch. Gia moved like water, flowing around attacks, striking with precision. She landed more hits on the core than anyone Day 1 had seen. The crowd cheered with every successful strike. 5 minutes passed, then 6, then 7. At 8 minutes, the core changed tactics. It stopped trying to match her speed and instead became defensive, using energy shields and spatial distortion. Gia couldn't break through. She tried for another minute before exhaustion forced her to focus purely on defense. At 9 minutes and 16 seconds, the core found an opening and ended the fight. Gia walked out under her own power, but Day 1 could see the frustration on her face. She had come closer than anyone in years and still failed. That night, Day 1 reviewed his recordings. He had footage from 12 different trials now. He watched them over and over, not focusing on the cadets, but on the arena itself. He tracked power fluctuations, noted timing patterns, mapped the locations of every access panel and maintenance port. You're going to drive yourself crazy. Day 1 looked up. Hyunwoo stood at the door of their quarters, holding 2 cups of something that passed for coffee in the academy. Just studying, Day 1 said. Hyunwoo handed him a cup and sat down. Everyone studies combat techniques. You study wiring diagrams. Why? Because everyone who studies combat techniques loses, Day 1 said simply. So your plan is what? To not fight it? My plan is to understand it first. Day 1 pulled up a holographic display from his datapad. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the arena with dozens of notes and annotations. The core is powerful because it adapts. But adaptation requires processing power. That power has to come from somewhere. Hyunwoo studied the display. You're trying to find a weakness in the system, not the fighter. Every system has limitations, Day 1 said. I just need to find them. 2 weeks before his scheduled trial, Day 1 was caught again in the observation deck. This time it was after midnight, and he was using a scanner to map the energy conduits beneath the arena floor. Sun Ho found him and nearly had a panic attack. Are you insane? The technician hissed, keeping his voice low. There are security drones everywhere. If they catch you tampering with academy equipment, you'll be expelled and arrested. I'm not tampering, I'm just looking, Day 1 said, but he put the scanner away. No. Go back to your quarters. The arena core. How often does it get maintenance? Sun Ho sighed. He looked tired. Why do you keep asking these questions? Because I'm trying to survive my trial, and I don't think fighting is the answer. The technician was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, the core gets maintenance every 6 months. Full system diagnostic, neural network optimization, hardware inspection. It's due for one next month, but they always delay it until after trial season ends. Why? Because maintenance requires shutting down major systems. The academy doesn't want to interrupt the trial schedule. Sun Ho glanced around nervously. That's all I'm telling you. Now leave before we both get in trouble. Day 1 thanked him and left, but his mind was racing. The core was overdue for maintenance. That meant it was running on systems that hadn't been inspected in months. Energy efficiency decreased. Small errors accumulated in the code. Back in his quarters, he updated his notes. Hyunwoo had already faced his trial that morning. He had survived 7 minutes and passed, but he was covered in bruises and could barely move. "Your turn soon," Hyunwoo said from his bunk. "You ready?" "I think so," Daewon said. "You think so? Everyone else says they're ready or they're not ready. You think so?" Daewon smiled slightly. "I'm ready for what I'm going to do. I don't know if what I'm going to do will work," Hyunwoo groaned. "You're going to try something crazy, aren't you?" "Probably. Don't die. I don't want a new roommate." The night before his trial, Daewon couldn't sleep. He reviewed his notes one final time. He had diagrams of the arena's power distribution system, timing charts of the core's processing cycles, maps of every maintenance access point. He had studied not how to fight the core, but how the core fought, what it cost in terms of energy, processing time, and system resources. There was a pattern, a rhythm. The core was powerful, but it wasn't efficient. It used brute force processing to adapt, which meant it consumed enormous amounts of power during combat. That power came from specific conduits. Those conduits ran through specific access points. Those access points had physical controls that couldn't be overridden remotely because of safety regulations. If someone could reach those controls during a fight, it was insane. It was dangerous. It probably wouldn't work. But Daewon couldn't think of any other way to survive 10 minutes against something that had defeated every warrior who had ever faced it. He finally fell asleep near dawn, his datapad still glowing with its collection of technical diagrams and energy flow charts. Tomorrow, he would either prove that humans could think differently than every other species in the galaxy, or he would become another name on the list of failures. Either way, he wasn't going to fight the arena core the way everyone expected. The morning of the trial arrived cold and quiet. Daewon woke before the alarm, dressed in the standard combat suit, and checked his belt. The academy allowed cadets to carry basic tools into the arena. Most brought weapons or medical supplies. Daewon brought his multi-tool, a scanner, and a small kit of spare parts. Nobody questioned it. They probably thought he was just nervous and over-prepared. Hyunwoo wished him luck at breakfast. Jia saw him in the hallway and gave him a curt nod. She had passed her trial despite not defeating the core, and her pride was still wounded. Other cadets barely noticed him. He was just another average human about to face an impossible test. The preparation room was small and stark. Daewon had 1 hour alone to warm up and mentally prepare. He didn't do combat drills. Instead, he reviewed his datapad one last time, memorizing the locations of access panels, the timing of power cycles, the rhythm of energy distribution. He visualized the arena floor as a circuit board, not a battlefield. A tone sounded. It was time. The tunnel to the arena felt longer than it was. Daewon could hear the crowd, already hundreds of cadets and instructors gathered to watch. Final trials were always well attended. Everyone wanted to see who would break, who would surprise them, who would become the next record holder for survival time. He stepped out into the light. The arena was massive, a circular space 200 meters across, with smooth metal floors and walls that rose up to the observation decks. Instructor Velthus stood at the judge's platform, his reptilian features unreadable. "Cadet Daewon," Velthus's voice boomed across the arena. "You face the arena core. Survive 10 minutes to pass. Defeat it to become legend. The trial begins when the core materializes. Do you understand?" "Yes, instructor," Daewon called back. "Then begin." The air in the center of the arena shimmered. Energy gathered, forming a sphere of crackling light. The sphere expanded, took shape, solidified. The arena core stood before him, a humanoid figure of hard light construction, featureless except for a central processing node that glowed like a blue star in its chest. It was beautiful and terrifying. The timer started. 10 minutes counting down. Daewon moved first, rushing forward with a basic strike combination. It was textbook technique. Nothing special. The core blocked easily and countered with a palm strike that sent Daewon stumbling backward. Pain flared in his ribs. He tried again, using a leg sweep he had learned in training. The core jumped over it, and landed a kick to his shoulder that numbed his entire arm. 30 seconds had passed, and he was already losing badly. In the observation deck, Hyunwoo leaned forward. "Come on, Day One. Move faster." Jia watched with clinical interest. "He's too slow. The core has already mapped his speed and reach. He won't last 5 minutes." Day One knew she was right. He could feel it every move he made. The core was learning, adapting, predicting. He threw a punch that the core blocked before his fist was even halfway extended. He tried a feint that the core ignored because it had already calculated that the feint was too obvious to be real. 2 minutes passed. Day One was bleeding from his nose, and his left leg wasn't responding correctly from a strike he barely remembered receiving. The crowd was already losing interest. Just another cadet getting destroyed. Then Day One stopped attacking. He backed up, hands raised in a defensive stance, and started moving in a circle around the core. The core followed, waiting for the next attack. But Day One didn't attack. He just kept moving, watching, measuring distances. "What is he doing?" someone in the crowd asked. Instructor Velthus stood up slightly. His yellow eyes narrowed. "Something I have not seen before." The core advanced, forcing engagement. It launched a series of strikes designed to corner Day One against the arena wall. Day One defended desperately, taking hits but staying mobile, always moving toward a specific point. 3 minutes. 4 minutes. Then Day One did something that made the entire crowd gasp. He turned and ran not away from the core, but toward the arena wall, toward a specific section where a maintenance access panel was embedded in the metal. The core pursued. It was faster than Day One, closing the distance easily. But Day One wasn't trying to escape. He was counting steps, timing the distance, calculating energy consumption. 20 meters from the wall, the core launched a massive energy attack designed to end the fight immediately. The blast lit up the arena. Shields flickered at the observation deck boundaries. When the light cleared, Day One was down on one knee, his right arm hanging limp, smoking where the energy had grazed him. But he was still moving. 5 minutes. He reached the wall and pulled out his multi-tool. His hands shook as he jammed it into the maintenance panel seam and twisted. The panel popped open, revealing a complex array of power conduits and control systems underneath. "What is he doing?" Sunho shouted from the control room. "Those are live systems. If he touches the wrong thing, he could electrocute himself, or shut down life support, or he knows what he's doing," Velthus said quietly. The instructor's tone made Sunho fall silent. The core reached Day One and swung a massive fist at his head. Day One ducked, felt the wind of the strike pass over him, and grabbed 2 specific wires from the open panel. He yanked them free and twisted them together in a way that made absolutely no sense from a combat perspective, but perfect sense if you understood power distribution systems. The lights in the arena flickered. The core hesitated. Just for a moment. Just for a fraction of a second. But it hesitated. Day One rolled away as the core's next strike hit the wall where his head had been. He came up running toward the opposite side of the arena. 6 minutes. His body was screaming in pain. Every breath hurt. His vision was blurring, but now he could see what he had done. The power fluctuation was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. The core's movements were microseconds, slower. Its prediction algorithms were taking slightly longer to process. He had disrupted the power flow. Not enough to shut the core down, but enough to introduce lag into its systems. Impossible. Jia breathed in the observation deck. He's not fighting it. He's sabotaging the arena itself. "Is that legal?" someone asked. Velthus checked the rule database on his console. A slow smile spread across his reptilian features. "The rules state that cadets must defeat or survive the arena core by any means necessary. There is no restriction on how they accomplish this." 7 minutes. Day One reached another access panel. The core was right behind him, but now it was predictable. The lag in its systems meant it was attacking based on where Day One had been, not where he was going to be. He opened the second panel and rerouted another set of power conduits. The arena core froze for a full second. In the observation deck, alarms started blaring in the control room. Sun Ho was frantically typing at his console. "He's redistributing the core's processing power through the environmental systems," the technician said in disbelief. "He's making it calculate temperature regulation and gravity controls at the same time as combat algorithms. It's overloading the neural network." 8 minutes. Daewon could barely stand. The core recovered from its freeze and came at him with renewed aggression, as if it understood what he was doing and was angry about it. But it was slower now. Its movements less fluid. Its predictions less accurate. Daewon dodged a strike that would have killed him 5 minutes ago. He was learning the lag, using it, exploiting it. He reached a third access panel and did something even more dangerous. He redirected the core's defensive power into its offensive systems, leaving its central processing node exposed. 9 minutes. The crowd was on their feet. This was unprecedented. This was impossible. This was a human doing what 300 years of warriors from 100 species had never considered, changing the rules of the fight itself. The arena core launched everything it had in a final desperate attack. Energy blasts. Gravity waves. Hard light constructs that materialized into blades and hammers. Daewon couldn't dodge them all. One caught him in the leg, spinning him around. Another hit his chest, cracking ribs. But he was close enough now. Close enough to the core's central node. Close enough to the one spot that was vulnerable because he had systematically stripped away its defenses by redistributing its power. 9 minutes and 40 seconds. Daewon pulled out a piece of sharp metal from his toolkit, not a weapon, just scrap he had picked up from a maintenance panel. He lunged forward with the last of his strength and jammed it directly into the central processing node. Electricity arced. The core's form flickered, destabilized. The blue light in its chest went dark. The arena core collapsed, its hard light construction dissolving into nothing. The timer read 9 minutes and 53 seconds. The arena fell absolutely silent. Daewon fell to his knees, then forward onto his face. He was unconscious before he hit the ground. Daewon woke up in the medical bay. His entire body felt like it was on fire. Every breath hurt. When he tried to sit up, gentle hands pushed him back down. "Stay still. You have 3 broken ribs, a fractured arm, severe burns, and a concussion." The medical officer was an insectoid being with multiple eyes. "You are lucky to be alive." Quote, "Did I pass?" Daewon's voice came out as a rasp. The medical officer made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "You did more than pass. The academy has been in chaos for 3 hours. Half the instructors want to give you a medal. The other half want to expel you." Before Daewon could respond, the medical bay doors burst open. Instructor Velthus entered, followed by 3 other senior instructors and Sun Ho, who looked like he hadn't slept. Behind them, a crowd of cadets tried to push in before security drones blocked the entrance. "Clear the room, except for the senior staff," Velthus ordered. The medical officer and drones ushered everyone else out, though Daewon could see faces pressed against the windows, including Hyunwoo and Jia. Velthus approached the medical bed. His yellow eyes studied Daewon with an expression that was hard to read. "Explain what you did." Daewon struggled to sit up. This time, the medical officer allowed it. Propping pillows behind him, "I observed the arena core's behavior patterns. I mapped its power consumption. I identified that it was overdue for maintenance and running on degraded systems. Then I exploited the physical infrastructure to redistribute its processing resources." One of the other instructors, a floating crystalline being, spoke with a voice like wind chimes. "You sabotaged Academy property during a combat trial." "No, sir," Daewon said. "I used the arena's own systems against it. Every modification I made was through standard access panels, using basic tools. I didn't hack anything. I didn't break any encrypted systems. I just rerouted power the same way maintenance crews do during regular operations." Sunho stepped forward nervously. "He's right. I checked the logs. Every panel he accessed is classified as field serviceable, which means they're designed to be operated by technicians without special authorization. He didn't bypass any security protocols because those panels don't have security protocols. They're physically accessible by design for emergency maintenance. Emergency maintenance during combat? Another instructor challenged. The rules don't specify when maintenance can occur, Day One said quietly. They only specify that cadets must defeat or survive the arena core by any means necessary. You never said we couldn't modify the arena during the trial. Silence fell over the room. Velthis's scaled face was unreadable. Finally, he said, "You understand that what you did is not combat. You did not defeat the core through martial skill or tactical superiority. You changed the parameters of the trial itself." "Yes, sir." "And you believe this is acceptable?" Day One met the instructor's yellow gaze. "Sir, you said that every species has tried their method. Strength, speed, telepathy, phasing. They all failed because they tried to fight the core on its terms. I'm human. We don't adapt to our environment when we can make the environment adapt to us instead." One of the instructors made a sound of disgust. "Arrogance. Your species thinks technology can solve everything." "Not everything," Day One said. "But in this case, yes. The arena core is technology. It runs on power, processes data, relies on infrastructure. Those are things that can be manipulated. I didn't think I could punch harder than 100 generations of warriors who failed. So I changed what harder meant." Velthis turned to the other instructors. "I need to consult with the Academy Council. This precedent affects not just this trial, but the fundamental nature of combat training. Guards, ensure Cadet Day One remains in medical care. No one speaks to him until we reach a decision." The instructors filed out. Through the window, Day One could see cadets arguing with security drones, demanding information. Sun Ho lingered at the door. "Was it worth it?" the technician asked quietly. "Ask me after they decide whether to expel me," Day One said with a weak smile. The next 6 hours were the longest of Day One's life. The medical officer kept him sedated for part of it, healing his worst injuries with advanced technology that his colony world didn't have access to. When he was awake, he stared at the ceiling and wondered if he had just destroyed his future in a spectacular fashion. Hyun Woo managed to sneak in during a shift change. "You're insane. You know that, right? Everyone is talking about you. Half the cadets think you're a genius. The other half think you're a cheater." "What do you think?" Day One asked. Hyun Woo grinned. "I think you're a genius who found a loophole that nobody else was crazy enough to look for. But man, you scared me. When you went down, I thought you were dead. I felt dead. Jia wants to talk to you. She's been pacing outside for hours, but they won't let her in." Before Day One could respond, alarms blared. Security drones rushed past the medical bay. Hyun Woo was escorted out. Day One was left alone with his thoughts, and the sound of distant arguments echoing through the station corridors. Finally, as the station's artificial night cycle began, Velthis returned. This time, he was alone. The instructor pulled up a chair and sat beside Day One's bed, with a tired sigh that seemed strange coming from a being who was 300 years old. "The council has made their decision," Velthis said. "But first, I want to tell you something. I have trained warriors from every species in the known galaxy. I have seen strength that could break steel, speed that defied physics, intelligence that computed 1,000 strategies in seconds. Do you know what I have never seen?" In quote. "What, sir?" "Someone who looked at an impossible problem and decided the problem itself was wrong." Velthis leaned forward. "Every warrior I have trained tried to be better within the existing framework. Stronger, faster, smarter. You looked at the framework and asked why it had to exist at all. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, sir? That depends on whether you want to be a warrior or something else entirely." Velthis stood up. "The council has ruled that you passed your trial. The rules state, by any means necessary, and you interpreted that literally. You broke no laws, violated no safety protocols, and achieved the objective. Your method was unconventional, but legal. Relief flooded through day one. Thank you, sir. Those are common. Long. Rotan from the plan. However, Velthus continued, and day one's heart sank. The arena core has been taken offline for complete reconstruction. Anti-tampering measures are being installed. Physical access panels will be shielded during trials. The infrastructure will be hardened against the type of exploitation you performed. You have passed, but you have also ensured that no one can ever use your method again. Day one nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Velthus's yellow eyes gleamed. You have not just passed a trial, human. You have changed the academy itself. Every future cadet will face a harder test because of what you did. Some of your peers will hate you for that. Some will respect you. But all of them will remember the human who rewired the unbeatable core. The instructor walked to the door, then paused. There is one more thing. Jia has requested a meeting with you. She is waiting outside. I suggest you hear what she has to say. Velthus left. A moment later, Jia entered. She looked different than day one, remembered less confident, a more uncertain. She pulled up the chair Velthus had vacated and sat down. I came closer than anyone to defeating the core using pure combat skill, she said without preamble. 9 minutes and 16 seconds. I was proud of that record. And then you broke it by not fighting at all. Day one waited. He didn't know what to say. I was angry at first, Jia continued. I felt like you cheated. Like you took an easy path, while the rest of us suffered. But then, I watched the recording of your trial. I studied what you did. She met his eyes. You didn't take an easy path. You took an impossible path that required different skills than combat. You observed, analyzed, understood systems that most warriors don't even notice exist, and you did it while getting beaten down by an opponent that was learning your every move. I couldn't win the way you would have, Day One said. I know. And that's what I wanted to tell you. Jia stood up. You taught me something today. Being the best warrior doesn't mean fighting the same way everyone else fights, just better. Sometimes it means fighting in a way no one else imagined. That's valuable. Thank you. She left before Day One could respond. He lay back in bed, exhausted and sore, but feeling something he hadn't expected. Pride. Not in defeating the core. He wasn't sure he had really defeated it in any meaningful sense, but pride in showing that humans could contribute something unique to a galaxy full of beings who were stronger, faster, and more naturally adapted for combat than his species would ever be. Sometimes the best weapon wasn't a stronger punch. Sometimes it was a different perspective. Day One spent 3 more days in the medical bay. During that time, the academy transformed around him. News of what he had done spread through the station like wildfire, and then beyond, to other academies, to military installations, to worlds throughout the known galaxy. The human who rewired the arena core became a story that cadets would tell for generations. But inside the academy itself, there was chaos. The faculty held emergency meetings to rewrite trial protocols. Engineering teams worked around the clock to redesign the arena with anti-tampering systems. Instructors debated whether Day One's method represented innovation or exploitation. The arguments were fierce and ongoing. On the 4th day, Day One was cleared for light duty. His ribs were healed, his arm was functional, and his burns had faded to pink scars that would disappear completely within a week. He returned to his barracks to find his belongings had been moved to a single private room, a privilege usually reserved for top-ranking cadets. Hyunwoo was waiting outside with a grin. Congratulations. You're famous and you get better quarters than me. I'm definitely jealous. I'd trade you, Day One said. Privacy is overrated when everyone wants to either congratulate you or punch you. Has anyone actually tried to punch you? 3 cadets so far. Well, they tried. Security drones intervened. Hyunwoo laughed. What did you expect? You made everyone else's trial harder. Some people are going to be angry about that for a while. Over the next weeks, Daewon returned to training. But his schedule was different now. Instructors called him in for consultations about system security. Engineering teams asked him to review their anti-tampering measures and find weaknesses. He went from being an average cadet to being someone whose opinion actually mattered. The new Arena Core was unveiled 2 months after Daewon's trial. It was magnificent, a complete redesign, with hardened access panels, encrypted physical controls, redundant power systems, and adaptive monitoring that would detect any attempt to manipulate the infrastructure during combat. Sun Ho gave Daewon a private tour of the upgrades. This is your fault, you know, the technician said, but he was smiling. I've had to rebuild the entire power distribution network. Do you know how much work that is? I'm sorry, Daewon said, not sounding sorry at all. Don't be. This is how it should have been, from the start. You exposed vulnerabilities that could have been exploited in actual combat situations. The Council recognized that. They've promoted me to Senior Engineering Technician, specifically to maintain the new security systems. Sun Ho extended his hand. So, thank you. Your crazy stunt gave me a career advancement. The first cadet to face the new Arena Core was a Vorthan warrior built like a tank with natural armor plating. He lasted 6 minutes using traditional combat methods. The second was a telepathic being who tried to confuse the Core's sensors. She lasted 7 minutes. Neither attempted what Daewon had done. The new systems made it impossible. But something interesting happened. Cadets started asking different questions in tactical classes. Instead of just studying combat techniques, they asked about infrastructure, about system limitations, about creative problem solving. Instructors who had taught the same material for decades found themselves adapting their lessons. Jia approached Daewon one day in the training hall. She had passed her remaining trials with perfect scores and was being fast-tracked for an elite military unit. I've been thinking about what you did. About perspective. And? Daewon asked, setting down his training weights. I want you to spar with me. Daewon blinked. You want to fight me? You're twice as fast and 3 times as skilled. That's not the point. I want to see how you think during combat. Not how you fight. How you think. Jia moved to the sparring ring. Come on, show me what humans see that the rest of us miss. They sparred for an hour. Daewon lost every match, as expected. But Jia noticed something. He kept trying to use the environment. He led her toward equipment racks, tried to position himself near lighting panels, attempted to use the angles of the room itself as weapons. You're not just fighting me, Jia said after the last match. You're fighting me, plus everything around us. Humans evolved in an environment where we weren't the strongest or fastest, Daewon explained, breathing hard. We survived by using tools, by modifying our surroundings, by thinking about systems instead of just direct confrontation. It's in our nature. Jia nodded slowly. I'm going to incorporate that into my training. Thank you. As graduation approached, Instructor Velthis called Daewon to his office. The old reptilian warrior was reviewing data on his console when Daewon entered. He gestured for Daewon to sit. I have been offered a position as instructor at the Advanced Tactical Academy on Keros Prime, Velthis said. It is a promotion and an honor. I will be leaving Theta 7 inches 3 months. Congratulations, sir, Daewon said, though he felt a pang of disappointment. Velthis had been hard but fair, and more than any other instructor, he had defended Daewon's unconventional methods. I am telling you this because I want you to come with me. Daewon sat up straight. Sir, Keros Prime trains elite operatives and strategic commanders. The students there are not learning basic combat. They are learning how to win wars, how to solve impossible problems, how to think beyond conventional limitations. Velthis turned from his console to look directly at Daewon. I want to create a new program. Environmental combat and systems warfare. You would help me develop it. I'm not qualified to teach, sir. I barely graduated from basic training. You defeated a system that had never been beaten in 80 years, using methods that no one else conceived of. You are qualified. Velthus leaned back in his chair. Understand what I am offering, human. You can go into standard military service and be a competent soldier. Or you can help shape how the entire galaxy thinks about combat. Which do you choose? Overst Engi. End quote. When we told a person, in some of the sign. End quote. Overstanded military service. Understanded military service. Day one didn't need to think long. When do we leave? Graduation day arrived with ceremony and celebration. 200 cadets, from 30 different species, received their certifications. Day one stood with his class, wearing the standard uniform, looking remarkably average among beings with wings, extra limbs, and natural weapons. But when Instructor Velthus read the special commendations, Day one's name was called. He walked to the platform, while the crowd murmured. Some applauded. Some were silent. Everyone remembered what he had done. Cadet Day 1, Velthus said formally, for demonstrating exceptional strategic thinking, for identifying and exploiting systemic vulnerabilities, and for fundamentally changing how this academy approaches combat trials, you are awarded the Star of Innovation. This commendation has not been given in 47 years. Velthus pinned the medal to Day 1's uniform. Then, quietly enough that only Day 1 could hear, the instructor added, You have made me rethink 300 years of assumptions about warfare. Thank you for that. After the ceremony, Day 1 found Hyun-woo, and they shared a meal at the station's observation deck, watching stars drift past the massive windows. Hyun-woo had accepted a position on a patrol ship protecting trade routes. They would likely not see each other for years. Do you think you'll ever face another arena corps? Hyun-woo asked. Not like that one. They've made sure of it. Does that bother you? That no one can copy what you did? Daewon thought about it. No. Because the lesson wasn't about the specific technique. It was about thinking differently. The next person who faces an impossible challenge won't use my solution, they'll find their own. That's what humans do. We adapt the problem itself. That's very philosophical for someone who spent 2 months getting beaten up in training. I learned a lot getting beaten up. They laughed, and for a while they just watched the stars. Tomorrow, Day 1, would leave for Kairos Prime. Tomorrow, his real work would begin. But tonight, he was just a cadet who had done something impossible and survived to tell about it. Years later, after Day 1 had become Instructor Day 1 and the environmental combat program was taught at academies across the galaxy, a young cadet asked him about the Arena Corps trial. By then, it had become a legend. Stories varied wildly about what had actually happened. Sir, is it true you defeated the Corps without landing a single combat strike? The cadet asked. Day 1, now older and with scars that told their own stories, smiled. The Corps was designed to be unbeatable in combat. So I didn't fight it in combat. I fought the idea that combat was the only option. But the current Arena Corps can't be manipulated like you did. So, how do we apply that lesson? By understanding that every situation has more variables than the obvious ones. In combat, there's terrain, resources, timing, psychology, infrastructure, and 1,000 other factors. Most warriors focus on the opponent. Humans learned to focus on everything else and use it as a weapon. The cadet thought about this. So, you're saying humans are weak at direct combat, but strong at indirect methods? I'm saying humans don't see combat and environment as separate things. We see a system, and systems can always be changed if you understand them well enough. Day 1 gestured to the training facility around them. Every being in this academy can fight, but can they rewire the battlefield itself? That's the real question. The cadet left to think about this, and Day 1 returned to his duties. But for just a moment, he remembered that day in the original arena, bleeding, exhausted, facing an impossible opponent. He remembered the moment he stopped trying to win the fight the way everyone expected and started trying to win it the way only a human would think to try. He remembered changing the rules because the rules themselves were the real opponent. And he smiled. Because that lesson had spread farther than he ever imagined. Throughout the galaxy, warriors were learning to think not just about how to fight harder, but how to fight smarter. How to see the invisible infrastructure that supported every conflict. How to turn limitations into advantages. The instructor who warned that no one defeats the arena core had been right. No one defeated it through superior combat. But a human had rewired it mid-fight, and in doing so, had rewired how an entire galaxy thought about impossible challenges. Sometimes the greatest victories weren't about being stronger. Sometimes they were about seeing possibilities that everyone else thought were impossible. And that, Day One thought, was very human indeed.